Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel, or welcome back to another round of Basis Picks. As always, please like and subscribe. Share with a friend, a colleague, a relative, an associate, an enemy, any and all in between. It's appreciated. Now, there are 3 cards taking place this weekend, 1 tonight, 2 tomorrow. I'm only doing main event predictions here, but I will be doing a watch along for the Keyshawn Davis and Dennis Berinchek fight tonight. I was supposed to be going out tomorrow evening, but that may not be happening now. So if that's the case, I may end up doing a little cheeky watch along to Catterall and Barboza, and then possibly even another one for Duarte and Medueno. So we'll just have to kind of play those last 2 by ear, but definitely will be one tonight. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into those picks. So tonight sees Dennis Berinchek defending his lightweight WBO belt. So tonight sees Dennis Berinchek defending his lightweight WBO belt against Keyshawn the Businessman Davis. Now, this whole I guess fight week has kind of been marred by I guess a little racial, what's the word we're gonna call it, a little racial episode. Keyshawn, I guess, initially thought it was Dennis Berinchek, but it looks like to all intents and purposes it was actually something orchestrated by Teofimo Lopez. Nothing is fully confirmed either way, but you know, Keyshawn, after being very vehemently upset at the press conference, has sort of walked it back on his Instagram live, and you know, kind of apologized to Berinchek's team for basically calling them out, but he basically said, I was gonna give them the full retraction until he pushed me on stage at the weigh-in. So you know, he's still got a bit of the animosity and the anger there. Looking at the way this fight kind of shapes up, it's funny because Dennis Berinchek has always been a lightweight. So he's, you know, I guess that's always been his natural weight. He hasn't moved up from lower weights like Vasily Lomachenko did, but he's a smaller lightweight. He's, you know, 5'7". His reach, I can't remember what his reach is. I think it's like 65 or 66 inches. It could be a little bit longer than that, but he's not a very big lightweight, and I think I've heard reasons as to why a lot of the I guess the Eastern Europeans look smaller than some of their contemporaries when they get in the ring, and I think a lot of it's to do with the way that they deal with hydration throughout camp. So one thing that we do know is Dennis Berinchek is a very fit guy, pretty much always on the front foot. He's like almost like a pressuring pure boxer. So like, he's not big on power, but he always seems to find those shots. He's always kind of bouncing on that front foot, trying to control lead hand distance, a bit similar to how Alexander Usyk fights. And it's just a case that because I guess he fights closer to his walk around weight than a lot of others do, like he's always got energy, he's always able to constantly push the pace and work. When it comes to Keyshawn Davis, he is the much naturally bigger of the two. I think he's about 5'9" and a little bit, whereas obviously Berinchek, I believe, is 5'7". Keyshawn's got longer reach. He's the naturally bigger, slightly wider back, you know, taller frame. He just looked a little bit sort of more wiry, strong. So you can kind of tell that he probably cuts more weight to make the 135 than Berinchek does, and that's, I think, where this ultimately plays its part. Now, Keyshawn, I reckon, was looking to be very aggressive from the start, but I do think that Bomac has probably told him, no, look, you're gonna have to break this guy down. He's not gonna just like go out. He's you know, he's been in the game for a long time, very decorated amateur, silver medalist, you know, had a long sort of stop-start pro career, but he's a natural fighter as well. He's done bare knuckle fighting, you know, he's used to fighting on the cobblers, he's used to having, you know, basically being in and amongst war, so to speak. So you're not just gonna, you know, take him out with one punch. And I think that's basically, this fight plays out in those early rounds. I think a lot of those early rounds, Keyshawn Davis is gonna be put under a little bit of, not so, he's gonna have some pressure on him. I feel like he's gonna be a little bit under the cosh. He's gonna have trouble trying to work out the timing and the rhythm of Berinchyk, because he does fight on a very offbeat rhythm, but it works for him and what he likes to do. He is fairly easy to hit, but he not very easy to be hit clean, and he's quite good at exchanging and getting, you know, almost getting the shots back once he has been hit, almost in that very like point scoring type system. But it's the constant pressure that normally makes his opponents kind of capitulate or go into more of a conservation mode, so that they've got some energy left in the later rounds. I do think though, when it comes down to it, after about round 4 or 5, I think Keyshawn's gonna have found his rhythm, and he's going to have been competitive enough in the earlier rounds, whereby maybe he's given sort of 1, maybe 2 rounds of the first sort of 5, 6. And I think the back end of the fight, where his conditioning maybe is gonna have to, you know, show out and show off, I think is where he's gonna be able to start investing and working the power shots, working a lot of that power into his punches, to the point where he can start taking the legs away from Berinchyk and making Berinchyk basically have to fight the fight he wants to fight, which is a bit more up close, a bit more to the body, like a bit more, you try go, I'll slip your shots and exchange with you. And I think that's where Keyshawn's going to basically have a lot of his success. So towards the back half of the fight, even though I think Berinchyk will probably be the still be the fitter in terms of being able to continuously push the pace, I think Keyshawn will get a lot more consideration for the stronger shots that he's landing, as I don't think Berinchyk going to be able to land as hard as shots or as eye-catching shots as Keyshawn. And ultimately, I think based on that, he's going to just about manage to get this fight. I'm thinking maybe a majority decision, where one judge probably has it 6 rounds apiece, and then the other 2 maybe have it like 7-5, 8-4, or 7-4 and 1 even kind of thing. I do think it's going to be pretty close on the scorecards, but I think, you know, Keyshawn being the relatively home type fighter, plus the fact he's going to be putting a bit more power and oomph into certain shots, I think that's what the judges are going to look for. So my prediction is Keyshawn Davis to win via points, and I'm thinking a majority decision. Alright, I'm going to do this a little bit different. I'm going to stick with the US and put the last fight in the middle. Oscar Duarte versus Miguel Medueno. Duarte was initially supposed to be fighting Regis Prograis. Regis Prograis had to pull out, I believe, a shoulder injury. So Miguel Medueno came in on short notice. I think it was 2 weeks. But look, he's a pretty decent operator. You know, in terms of like a last minute replacement, he's actually pretty good. He's a fun fighter, Medueno. You know, he's a come forward type fighter. He will try and give his all. I do think though, Medueno is a naturally smaller guy, so he's like a smaller guy moving up to take this fight. And I think that ultimately, even though the two of them are going to be fairly close in size, ultimately Duarte on the night is going to be a bit bigger, considerably, and he likes to sort of stay in the pocket and press forward. Now, even with his fight with Akhmedov, you could kind of see he's quite comfortable being in the pocket. Not the strongest of punchers, but he's a guy that works the body very well and consistently goes to the body. I think Medueno, for as good as he is and as game as he's going to be, I think he's just going to be a bit too small to sit and hang in the pocket. He doesn't necessarily have the skills to be able to shoot and play around on the outside. He try to pickpocket, ambush and rush Duarte, so he's going to end up playing him close and trying to basically fight fire with fire, and ultimately I think that's where he's going to fall short. So I do think that Oscar Duarte is going to win this fight, and I think he's going to win the fight via stoppage around about round 7, maybe 8, and it's probably going to be due to accumulations of body shots, so look out for that one. Finally, we're here. We are Jack Catterall versus Arnold Barboza. Now, it's funny because both of these fighters have been labeled boring in the past. The boring trailer was a stroke of genius by, you know, Matchroom team and stuff. It was one of my favorite ones. The Sam Jones cameo in it, I think, was gold. But when I look at these styles, obviously you got orthodox v southpaw. One thing I think about Jack Catterall, he's not a boring fighter. The problem with him is that he just doesn't have killer instinct. In most of his fights, he is always able to kind of get the measure of his opponent fairly quickly, and he's usually quite good at hurting them, usually like to the body, also with this very sort of powerful ramrod jab from the southpaw stance that he's able to throw out. But the work rate isn't consistent. I think that's one of the reasons why he was able to be robbed in that first Josh Taylor fight, just because at some points he started coasting, not letting his hands go enough, even though we all saw him kind of winning these rounds with the eye-catching punches. The work rate wasn't on his favor. So in the Regis Prograis fight, the very first 3 to 4 rounds of that fight was very much the same. It's like there's a little bit of work here and there, nothing really major, and the fight didn't kick into high gear until round 5 onwards. And on the other hand, you've got Arnold Barboza, who is very much safety first, textbook. Like, it's the jab, the right hand, maybe a shoot down to the body, another shoot jab. Now, he's had fights where he's basically pushed the pressure with the jab, stepped into the backhand, loaded the jab up. And even in those fights, even though he wasn't necessarily able to get his opponent out, he was front foot aggressive and front foot heavy. But then it gets a bit I guess tiresome when you're like, okay, well, you're putting all this pressure on, you're landing all of these clean shots at will, and just nothing's happening in front of you. Barboza, I believe, is 30-0 with like 11 KOs, so that kind of tells you what the deal is in that situation. And I think Catterall is 30-1 with like 13 KOs or something like that. So this isn't a fight whereby you expect either guy to get knocked out, but knockdowns definitely could be a thing here. That southpaw to orthodox rhythm, I think, is gonna be what tells here. If Barboza can get that rhythm early and work behind that jab and take Catterall's left hand out of play, not his left hand, sorry, his right hand out of play with the jab over the top from early, I think he can actually sort of control the fight and, for lack of a better word, stink it out to win a decision, a closely contested one, because let's not forget he is that away fighter here, and fighting the way he fights, unless he's really aggressive, a lot of those rounds will go to Jack. I think he still has a lot of cachet and money in the bank based on that first Josh Taylor fight, so I think he gets given consideration now at times when maybe he shouldn't, but I'm not complaining. Looking at it, I think that I've never been impressed with Arnold Barboza. There's only one fight of his that I saw and I thought that it was oh, okay, this is actually decent, and I can't remember. It was just before the the Irish guy, McComb. It was just before the fight, just before him, I think. But again, that fight I was frustrated, where I was watching the fight and I'm like, you're pressing this guy and nothing's happening. Now I'm thinking about it. Was it the it might have been the Pedraza fight that I'm thinking of. I'm not 100% sure. It might be that fight, but yeah, it was just you're on the front foot, but just you can't get this guy's respect with the power kind of thing. So yeah, in terms of the power game, I think Catterall's got more power, and I think because of the whole the boring tag and maybe trying to, you know, justify being a world champion moving forward, he's gonna have to get more involved in this one. The Linares fight was his moment to have his coming out party, and he kind of fluffed his lines in that one. The Prograis fight was a really good fight. It was an entertaining fight, but it showed chinks in the armor. Obviously the Josh Taylor 2 fight was similar to the first one, but again, he kind of got it done, but it was not in remarkable fashion as such. This is, I think he's going to be trying to go for that opportunity. I think he's going to try and take a bit more and be a bit more on the front foot and be a bit more aggressive. Because of that, I do think he will get consideration on the cards, and I just don't know if he's going to have the killer instinct to actually get the knockout. I do think he may drop Barboza once, possibly even twice in this fight, but I don't think he'll just have enough to get him out of there. So I do see Jack Catterall winning the fight, and I do think it will be a unanimous decision victory. Leave your comments down below. Please let me know how you think these main events play out, and give your comments on the undercard fights as well. I'd be happy to read those. And don't forget, the main watch along for Berinchyk versus Davis will be happening tonight, probably starting around 2-3 o'clock. So yeah, look out for that. But with that being said, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share. But for right now, Spaces Picks locked.